Christian Parenting.
Marriage is the foundation of our families. When our marriage is strong, our families are strong. And when our marriage is struggling, our families struggle too. And we all know that we should prioritize our marriages, but in the busyness of life and parenting, it is so easy to just push it aside and say, we're going to focus on that later. But if you're feeling the nudge to invest in your marriage, our newest digital guide, Marriage Simplified, is the resource for you. Also, if you struggle with difficult conversations about divorce, blending families, in-laws, or single parenting, we cover those topics head on too. So inside this guide, you're going to find our best podcasts, videos, and articles on all things marriage. You're also going to find conversation guides and discussion questions for your spouse and your kids. And the best part is, since this guide is digital, you can download it straight to your phone or computer and search through resources whenever you need. Marriage is far from simple, and no guide can truly simplify it, but we are so glad that you are taking the time to pore over these resources and strengthen the relationship and family that God has blessed you with. You can go to cpgive.org to download your copy for just $5. That's the best of the best resources from top Christian parenting contributors for just $5. Again, that's cpgive.org. Hey everyone, welcome to the Christian Parenting Podcast, where we are passionate about equipping you to raise kids who know, love, and follow Jesus, and also share their faith with the world around them. I'm Steph Thurling. I'm the Executive Director of Christian Parenting, and I am so glad that you're here today. We are having a really important conversation with Clare Morell, who is the author of The Tech Exit. It comes out in 2 weeks, and you can pre-order it now wherever you like to order your books. Clare unpacks the hidden dangers of digital technology on our children's emotional, social, and spiritual health. From the false security of parental controls to the addictive nature of smartphones and social media, she really helps us understand how the design of tech itself works against the kinds of kids we're trying to raise in a Christian home. But if you feel overwhelmed or anxious just hearing about this and kind of in a panic, hold up a minute, because this book is full of hope and it's practical. Clare shares steps for creating a tech-free culture at home, things like setting family screen time rules, using alternative phones, and building a supportive community. So whether you're parenting toddlers or teens, this episode is full of real hope, encouragement, and strategies for breaking free from the screen time trap. We even share a little bit at the end. We actually share a ton at the end of activities that kids can do at home while you're cooking dinner or cleaning or whatever it is that you just need a little bit of time and you typically run to a screen to keep them entertained. We give you ideas. So I promise you, you will leave with some tangible action items. And if this episode encourages you, please take a second to like, review, and subscribe. Your support helps us reach even more parents just like you. So let's jump in with Clare. Hi, Clare. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me on, Steph. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good conversation. And I just want to get right into the context. It's going to be really good. But first, before we do that, I do want to start with introductions. So can you tell everyone kind of who you are, what you do, and then just tell us about your family?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, so my name's Clare Morell. I live in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill with my husband, who is a pastor at our church here. We're members at Capitol Hill Baptist Church, and we have 3 kids. Our oldest is almost 5, Theodore, and Flavius is our middle, and he is 3. And then we have a 1-year-old little girl named Josephine. And my kind of life outside the home, besides being a mother to those 3 littles, is focused on public policy work. I'm a fellow at a think tank in DC called the Ethics and Public Policy Center. And my policy work has focused on solutions in the law, whether at the federal level or state laws, to better protect kids online from the harms of online pornography and social media. And so I kind of wear those 2 hats. I'm both a parent, but I'm also engaged in public policy work, trying to help protect all children in America from the harms of these digital technologies. And so that is why I wrote the book, The Tech Exit, a practical guide for freeing kids and teens from smartphones. And that my heart behind that book was to really help parents on the front lines. While I work for Policy Solutions, parents are the ones who are dealing with these things on a daily basis. And so tried to provide practical help through this book.
Yeah. I love that because you're on the policy side of it all. So you hear from that perspective, but also the parenting perspective too. And your kids are going to enter into the world of technology and phones and social media sooner than you think. And so it's like really refreshing to have your voice speaking on this topic. And I have 2 boys and a girl as well, and they're in that same age gap.
It's so fun. Yes.
They're older, but they are the same age gap. So you are in the busy season, very busy, but very fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both busy and fun.
I kind of told you, yes, busy and fun. I feel like that sums up all of parenting for all of the seasons. I keep thinking like, I'll be less busy soon. And then it just keeps getting busier. So I don't know, but it's good. So I kind of told you before we started recording that I don't think we can talk about technology enough on this podcast. And I kind of want to start with the why behind that statement, because maybe some of my listeners are listening and they're tempted to say like, oh, another episode on technology and phones, like I'm going to skip it, or I feel too much guilt or overwhelm around this subject, so I'm going to avoid it as long as I can. Or maybe you're listening and you're like, yes, like give me all the resources, but also practical steps. Because there's a lot out there about just how terrible technology is, but it's hard to get those practical steps. So no matter where you are in the conversation, as you're listening, welcome. And we're glad that you're here. Claire, you're really clear from your experience that smartphones and social media are doing real harm. So what are the biggest dangers that you see digital technology posing to our kids, both emotionally, socially, and spiritually?
Yes, that is a huge question. And I would just say, I really feel for parents. I think parents often feel caught in a kind of what I call like the screen time trap, which is that they know these screens aren't great for kids. They're aware of the harms, but they feel like everybody has them. Their kid's going to be totally left out if they don't have a smartphone and social media. And they don't want to be the weird, have their kid be the weird kid or be the mean parent that says no. And so, the heart behind my book was trying to convince parents that, there actually is another way. You can break free from this screen time trap. Other parents have done this, but the start of my book really starts with trying to explain to parents why are these technologies so bad, but from the angle as to why are kind of current strategies that I think can just easily become the default. It sounds like the most moderate approach. Like, let's just put screen time limits and parental controls in place. You can still have this thing and be part of the cool crew, but then not experience the harms. And I just found through digging deeper in my research that the solutions offered to parents, honestly sold to them by the tech companies, are just not working, and that kids are still being harmed and parents are just frustrated trying to stay on top of all of it. And so you're talking about the social, emotional, kind of spiritual harms. What I try to explain is that the underlying design behind smartphones, behind social media, is to extract as much of our time, attention, and data as possible, because that is their business model and that's what they sell to advertisers. So they're not neutral. They want us to spend more time on them. And kids' brains are particularly vulnerable to they're called like dopamine inducing features, which is dopamine is that neurotransmitter released in the brain when you get this kind of burst of pleasure and it makes you want to do that thing again. So they're designed to have this effect on us. And it really affects kids because their brains aren't fully developed and they're actually in this stage of development between the ages of 10 and 12 when the kind of dopamine receptors in their brain are multiplying. They're really valuing that kind of social peer feedback more and more, and it's being really hijacked by smartphones and social media. And so even when you put a time limit in place, what I've tried to explain to parents is that the child is still mentally and emotionally consumed by what's happening on the phone or what's happening on the apps, even when they're not on it, even when their time limit is expired, because of those dopamine effects. They feel compulsively drawn back to it. And I think on the kind of mental, emotional level, it really is rewiring children's brains and just making them always crave more and more of this dopamine, which it never satisfies. Dopamine only produces craving, not satisfaction. And so equating screens to sugar is really the wrong metaphor. It is not something that can really be used in moderation, particularly for a developing brain. It really acts on the brain more like a highly addictive drug. And so I think understanding that underlying design helps parents then understand why they kind of anecdotally have observed that these screen time limits really don't seem to be accomplishing what they had hoped. And that's why. And the last thing I would add on this, particularly for Christian parents, is that these devices, regardless of the parental content, if you're trying to screen out dangerous content, the technology itself conveys a message. It is shaping a particular worldview. And so like the medium is the message, in that these phones and apps are teaching kids that life is about instant gratification and kind of endless entertainment, and it's inherently self-focused. These apps, it kind of encourage a very selfish kind of self-orientation where it's all about you, how many followers you have, how many likes you got, as well as communicating that all that you want, your desires are being kind of hijacked by the dopamine, is to just watch the next video and the next reel. And there's no kind of delayed gratification and self-control. And so I think the virtues that Christian parents are really trying to impart to our kids are their kind of moral and spiritual formation, particularly those habits of self-control and self-discipline, are completely undermined by the technology. And so our children are always being shaped by something, and they are very influenced by what they take in. And so what they behold is really what they become. And so when they're using this technology, it's telling them life is for entertainment. Life is for you. Just keep scrolling. Life is just endless scrolling and entertainment, instead of orienting them towards the relationships God has placed them in, primarily with their parents, their siblings, their community, and orienting them towards God and towards others. And I think so when we understand as Christian parents, we're really trying to impart to our children that we want them to love God and love others, these devices and technology undermine it, even by their design. Regardless if you've tried to filter out all the bad content, the technology itself communicates a certain message to kids that is contrary to what we are trying to instill in them as Christian parents.
Yeah. And that is so hard. Like I have talked with my kids so much about actually, and really since reading your book, explaining like this phone is like a drug. Like it is trying to addict you. It is not trying to get you to be on it a little bit at a time. Like the point is for you to be on it as much as possible. And like I asked them, like, what type of parent would I be if I just gave you like cocaine and was like, just take a little, like, we would never do that to our kids, like literally ever. We know now that like our phones are very dangerous, similarly dangerous, obviously in different ways, but the point is just as addicting. And I try to tell them that it is so hard to do. Like it is so hard because they do not want to hear it. They don't want to be different than their friends. And there's always some reason that they should have. And my kids have phones. My two share, and then one has one for when they're dropped off places so that they can get a hold of us. We've put in a ton of limits for when they first get their phone, what's on it. We've tried the parental control things. They haven't been great in my experience. So I would love to talk about that a little bit. Like It gives kind of this false sense of security. Like tell us about why those aren't really like it's not really doing what we want it to do. Because I truly was like, if I give my kid this phone and then put the parental controls on it, then it's going to be fine because he can only use it for when he needs to call me, and it's just he's not even going to know that he can put stuff on it. So let's talk about that.
Yes. So I have a whole chapter of the book called Parental Controls Are a Myth. And I realize that kind of like a gut reaction a parent might have is just like, oh no, like panic. Like I'm not trying to hurt my kid. And so I don't mean to be judgmental of parents. I know parents that are on their front lines trying to do their best to protect their kids. And so I really blame the tech companies because they have not made these things intuitive or easy for parents to find, to turn on. They're not reliable. They have bugs and glitches, and the tech companies really don't prioritize addressing those things. And you have different kind of layers of parental controls, right? So there's parental controls on the phone that you can enable, which again are not perfect. They really can't accomplish everything that a parent would want. They sometimes get automatically reset with an iOS update, or there's a bug and they're just parents not aware that the kid was able to get around it. So they're problematic, but then individual apps may have certain parental settings you can enable. But as I've pointed out, they're really more like suggestions, not truly control, in the sense that in any of these social media apps, the built-in controls a child or teen has to actually enable to grant the parent to be like partnered, linked with them on their account, and then they can end that at any time. And the parent would know if they ended it, but it's the relationship is the child to parent, not the other way around. And then the other thing about them is they don't really give parents the access to what you would need to keep a child safe, in the sense they don't let you see what's on the child's feed. They don't let you see what's in children's direct messages, which is where predators could often reach out to children. I'm sure, your listeners might be familiar with some of the news stories about these sextortion schemes targeting young boys. A lot of that happens through these direct messages. And then the worst to me is that a parent decides, okay, the in-app parental controls and the device controls are not that great. I'm going to purchase and pay money for a third-party software, like a tool like Bark or Canopy. There's these kind of apps that a parent could buy. Most of the social media apps, the most dangerous ones and the most common ones that kids are on, block access to any third-party controls. And so parents are really flying blind when it comes to social media. I've heard just story after story too from parents of how their kids got around this, that they're smart. They find ways to reset the time limits, or they find ways to kind of skirt the settings. And so I think I am not anti-parental controls, in the sense that I think if you are allowing your children on any kind of internet connected device, not even a phone, but a computer or a tablet that's the family's, or even a smart TV in your house, you want to turn on all the settings as much as possible to have that protective layer, but that you can't rely on them. They're not actually effective. And so my book gives parents and principles for screen use. Like if you want to let a child do internet research, making that really public and transparent to other people in the family, that just a set of eyes is really the best kind of protection from a kid stumbling across something you wouldn't want them to. And then when it comes to the phones, and I don't know what you're using for your kids, I have just found that the smartphones are, the way Apple and Google have built them, very, very difficult to completely lock down. Now, I think there are ways. There's definitely ways you can lock it down more. You can take the internet browser off and things like that that really then kind of protects them from some of the parental control issues. But there's actually more alternative phones available. And I really try to explain this to parents in my book. I completely understand how parents want to stay in touch with a child, make sure they're safe. They're having more independence of movement. You just need to know where they are, how to reach them. And so I'm really encouraging parents, delay the smartphone and opt for some of these alternative phones, which don't have internet browsers or don't have access to any social media apps. And they're a lot more protective by their design. They're built in nature to be more safe for a child to use as a first cell phone. And I would say the options are better even today than they were 3 years ago. And so I think even companies are recognizing parents need something better, a better alternative than the smartphone for children.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do feel like the narrative is changing a little bit, where parents are becoming more and more aware of these issues. And so they're like me. They're like, I need to figure out what to do. I am desperate for someone to give me these practical steps, because I am right there in it with anyone listening who is like my middle schooler. There's like a school group chat going on, like there's all the things. It is so much to navigate as a parent. And we didn't have to do it when we were their age. Like I got a phone when I was 16 and it was a flip phone. It was purple, I think. It was like Motorola flip phone. It was very exciting. But like you couldn't, I don't even know if I could text. If I could, it cost like 10 cents a text or something. And you knew your parents were going to yell at you if you texted too much.
Oh,
so
yeah.
There was no group chat.
Oh, 100. And it was like, I remember I had 100 texts per month on our plan. And I remember months where I was like, I can't even open this text from a friend because I'm going to get charged over and my mom's going to kill me. So I was like, I can't even open your text. Stop texting me. So yeah, it has changed a lot. It's really difficult. And I think everything is now like a portal to the internet is part of the problem that I've explained to parents too with some of these filters is you think, well, I'm only allowing them these certain apps, but then every app basically has an in-app browser to the internet. Those in-app browsers are often really difficult. They don't necessarily get caught by the filters or the controls. And so within an app, kids are then accessing the browser and a parent wouldn't know. So there's all sorts of portals. Like you mentioned the group chat. Like I've heard so many different things. Like I didn't even realize that my kid was on their Gmail in this like big Google group chat. And so there's just so many portals of entry. It's really difficult for a parent, which is why I really recommend in my book that the smartphone just introduces so many things to keep on top of that. If you can delay that or opt for an alternative phone, you're just minimizing the number of portals you have to oversee and trying to opt for them using some type of family computer or family tablet that it's just more public. It's easier to see. I think what's so pernicious about the smartphone is it's so small and it's really difficult for parents to even tell what a kid's doing on it, and they can keep it with them and it's just always on their person. And so as much as possible, I tell parents, I'm like, the bigger the screen, the better. I feel like it's just more visible to people in the family. And so you want to like let them use the internet for research or things, like opting for something that's really public. Just it minimizes the amount of work a parent has to do to stay on top of all the different portals to the internet that are just really hard to lock down completely on a phone.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the hopeful part of your book.
Yes.
So tell us, kind of like a framework that you like to give families to help them like build a more tech-free culture at home.
Yes. Okay. So the sneak preview of the book, just give a little bit away now, is that kind of I walk parents through how to kind of detox if you've already given these things to your kids. So I first want parents to know it's never too late. It really never is too late to make a pivot and to take something away, even if you've already given it. And just starting with like a 30-day digital detox and then see how it goes. And you can then make some of these changes over the long term. But regardless, a detox is helpful, just a reset for everyone in the family, really, but particularly if you're trying to kind of unwind some things that you may have already given your kids. And then the rest of the book really walks through, okay, well, then how do we then re-enter a kind of tech-free childhood? And what do we want to give our children in the real world? And I kind of explain, if you do the fast of a digital detox, then what do you get to feast on instead? And so that's really the heart of the book, is that acronym FEAST. And that's kind of how I organize these 5 principles I really wanted parents to have as a framework and a takeaway. And so I'll just briefly walk through them. F is find other families. Every single parent I interviewed said the number one most important thing is you have to find other people to do this with you. You don't want your child to be the only one left out. And you also need the parental support. It gets really tiring, having to say no to your kid all the time, or just having to really stay strong on these convictions, and having parents who are allies and then friends for your kids by finding other families is really important. And I explain in the book, I give a lot of examples how you could do that in your neighborhood, your school, your church, just by starting to talk to other parents about this. And then the E is explain, and exemplify. Just that we should treat children as, soon to be adults, in the sense that we want them to understand our reasons for these things. We want them to actually buy into our reasons if we can, by just educating them on the harms. I give examples of resources parents can actually show to their kids, have conversations about it, explaining your rationale and your reasoning, and then exemplifying. I think the best thing for kids to train them for wise technology use as adults in our very digital world is just how we model, how we use our technology ourselves. And so I think that goes a long way, in the sense that I think kids really want smartphones because they see all these adults on smartphones. That's like, they just want to be like an adult. And so the more we separate ourselves, have good practices of separating ourselves, dumbing our own phones down, it really models it well for our kids. And so I've often explained that too. And parents say, well, I want my kid to use tech wisely, so I want to give it to them now to train them on it. I kind of explain, we don't really do that with other adult substances. Like, we don't do that with alcohol. We don't even really do that with cars. We don't say, oh, a 10-year-old, they're going to drive, so we'll just start teaching them now. We recognize there's an age of maturity they need to get to handle it themselves, but we really do a lot of training by modeling it ourselves. And that really is the best way to train our kids on these things. And then the A in FEAST stands for adopt alternatives, which I kind of mentioned. I really try to give parents examples of, here are these kinds of different alternative phones and communication tools, so you don't have to opt, just default to the kind of automatic option, which seems just like it has to be a smartphone. And then S is set family screen rules and accountability. And so just wanting, as I was mentioning, like these principles of having our screen use in the home be really public and purposeful, and that you're not just going to go on YouTube and watch a bunch of videos for hours, that you're going to have a specific purpose for getting on the internet, and it's going to be done publicly where other people in the family could walk by and see what you're doing. And that the other main principle that a lot of the families I interviewed had was that their screen entertainment was really sparing and shared, that it was used as a way to bring the family together, not each person in the family being kind of siloed on their own individual entertainment. And that's kind of what I was mentioning with this, the medium is the message, is that I think these devices are often so personalized that you start to think that, life is just my own personalized entertainment instead of making it a screen, like a large TV screen where everyone is enjoying the movie together. And so I really love that principle of trying to make that screen entertainment sparing. It's a treat. It's not necessarily a daily habit. And it's something we share together. And then the T is just trading screens. If we're restricting those and limiting those or taking those away, then we're trading screens for real life responsibilities and activities. And so I try to give a lot of examples of what that has looked like in families, what they pursue in the real world instead. And I think one of the most important things is that if we're restricting a child's freedom in the online world, giving them more responsibilities as they age in the real world, letting them take on adult-like tasks in the home, like just starting in the home, and then, helping train them towards serving others outside the home. And I think service is a really great antidote to anxiety and kind of self-focus. So I think just the mental health kind of epidemic we're seeing among kids today, this anxiety and depression, is a lot based on just you're consumed by what other people think about you. And you're really only thinking, very internally about yourself, and just that serving other people is just a wonderful antidote to that. And so a lot of families I talk to who have kind of gone tech-free or resisted tech and delayed these things talk a lot about responsibility in the home and service outside the home being like things that really fill their kids' lives, and that really built their kids' confidence and independence, and actually gave them a sense of like, oh, this is really meaningful that I get to do these kind of adult-like things, which was a great replacement for restricting some of their freedoms in the online world. So that's the kind of framework I'm offering parents in this book, help being remembered with the acronym FEAST. And it's because it is fundamentally, what I say is that the tech exit is fundamentally a positive no. I don't want people to think these families are living kind of lives of drudgery, but that it's actually really a joy-filled feast of a life.
Have you ever struggled to connect scripture to the real issues that you're facing today? Well, you can discover what the Bible means for your own life with the NIV Application Bible from Zondervan. This Bible features thousands of study notes drawn from the best-selling NIV Application Commentary series. So throughout the Bible, original meaning notes help you explore the meaning of the biblical text, while application notes help you relate the Bible's teachings to your everyday life. There's also book introductions that provide perspective and application for every book of the Bible, along with character profiles, questions to spur your own growth, and articles that explore the different aspects of God's character. Together, these tools will help you learn what the Bible means and discover what it means for your life today. Find out more at nivapplicationbible.com. That's nivapplicationbible.com. So you guys have probably heard me talk about IXL before, and that is because I truly love it. IXL is an online learning program that enriches your homeschool curriculum or offers a little more support at home that balances your school curriculum. It offers practice in math, English, language arts, science, and social studies. It adapts to each child, meeting them exactly where they are. So I have one kid who gets a little bored in math class and he wants more of a challenge. So I've used IXL to give him a little more work at home and really push him in his favorite subject. And then I have another child who's kind of struggled through some of his math units. And so we use IXL to get him a little more practice before those unit tests so that he feels more confident. And it has seriously been such a helpful tool for our family. IXL is easy to use. Everything is organized by grade, subject, topic, and subtopic, making it really simple to find activities for the exact skills that your kids are covering. IXL also offers instant feedback and explanations of new topics as kids use the program. So it's really helpful if you're using it to get a little extra support and practice in a particular subject. Like my family, you can make an impact on your child's learning and get IXL now. And Christian Parenting Podcast listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL memberships when they sign up today at IXL.com/today. Again, you can visit IXL.com/today to get the most effective learning program out there at the very best price. Well, yeah, when you think about our families and the things that we all probably want for our families. It's a close family unit. It's spending time together, and it's responsible, capable kids. And so what you're saying is we can take away phones, which are sucking our kids' time away from that. And we
Yeah.
can give them those things, because it is really easy with multiple TVs in the home to be like, okay, Harriet, you want to watch this. Your brothers want to watch this. You just go over here and watch it, and then they'll watch it over here. And it's like, there's a time and a place for that, of course. But it's also way more fun as a family when we're like, okay, no, we got to compromise and we got to figure it out together what movie we're going to watch. And then we're going to sit and we're going to eat our popcorn and we're going to do it together. You know, that's a life skill. To compromise about a movie is a life skill.
You are bringing me back to my childhood where we only had one TV, and it was honestly a VCR, and we would go to Blockbuster on a Friday night, and my dad would say, okay, you three go pick out a movie, and we'd have to agree. And that was a lot of like sibling working through that. Okay, we have to pick the movie we all agree on. And my dad said, if you can't figure it out in 10 minutes, we're leaving the store without a movie. And so that threat of like, oh, well, we got to agree on something or we're going to lose movie night. Like those things in my childhood, I really do feel like they were life lessons. Like these are good things for our kids to learn, that the ease that screens provide and the option for everything to be so individualized, I think does kind of steal away opportunities that parents and families have to build some of those life skills that will be really helpful to them in the real world as adults, just succeeding in their lives, being self-disciplined, being able to work through conflict or disagreement with other people. Like these are good things. And so kind of I think tech often just tries to remove any type of resistance. But a lot of these friction points in our lives are actually helpful to build our skills and shape our character in ways that I think Christian parents particularly would want. And so it's not a bad thing to have to compromise on one movie altogether.
Even though it's so much easier not to. Technology in general makes our life so easy that as parents, we kind of avoid that resistance and resilience, and our kids do too. Like I was telling a friend yesterday, after my second two, I've learned from my first that me having a phone with me at all times and having all of their friends' parents in my phone has made it where my oldest doesn't really know how to call anyone or schedule like a play date.
Yeah.
And so my other two, when they want to have a friend over, I make them pick up the phone and call. And then when the parents don't answer, I make them send the text and say like, hi, Mrs. Smith, I was wondering if, Sarah could play today. This is Harriet. Like just practice. Like you need to know how to do this or else I'm going to do it until you're like 16 years old and you're never going to know how to use the phone. But it's way easier if I do it.
It is. And I think that is what I really feel for parents because, yes, technology has made so many things so much easier for us. And parenting is hard work. Like, I will be the first to admit that so many, like, the tech can be so appealing as a parent because you're like, I'm tired. I don't have the energy to come up with another activity, or like, I just need you to not be screaming at me while I'm trying to make dinner. It's so easy for the screen, which is there, to just become a very easy crutch for parents. And I like think about it and I'm like, I almost envy my parents' generation where I'm like, they didn't even have it to have to resist it. Like it takes so much work for us, I think, to resist these things because it makes it easier. And so I think that's where I really do feel for parents. I kind of explained in the book that we used to have a smart TV in our home and it just was starting to become honestly too hard for me to resist. I didn't want my kid watching these shows all the time. And so we made the decision to just get rid of it. And that was a hard decision at first, but it made it easier for me because I realized I was expending so much energy to exert that self-control, to not give into it. And then just having it as a non-option, like my brain just couldn't even go there. And so we do have a TV now, but it's not a smart TV, and we unplug it and actually it lives behind our couch. Our kids kind of know it's back there, but it lives behind our couch most of the week. And my husband will take it out physically and set it up for the weekends when we do let them do like a Friday night movie and maybe like some Saturday morning nature videos so we can get some things done around the house. So we use tech with our kids, but we just try to really use it very purposefully, that it's not just the default option, but whenever we pull it out, it's very intentional. And so I kind of tell people, like, when you're on a diet, you don't just keep all this junk food stashed in the pantry so that in a moment of weakness, you just go binge yourself on sugar. I think it's the same with tech, that I just think that as parents, we are going to have moments of weakness. Like, I'm human. We have these limitations. It's a lot to exercise so much self-control. And so the more you can make those things like a non-option, I know it sounds extreme, but actually just getting rid of some things out of your home entirely or really dumbing tech down does a lot to actually just help you energy-wise as a parent, where you're like, I'm not having to constantly be fighting myself when I don't want to do this, but it's like, oh, in a moment of weakness, it's just so easy. I'm just going to, hand over the screen. So I just say that as an example of like decisions that we've made that haven't been easy, but we're really grateful we did. It has, I think, borne really great benefits in our family. Even if the decision to kind of rip the Band-Aid off and just say, okay, I think we're just going to get rid of this was kind of hard at first, it was really, in the long term, it's been a benefit. And that was my experience interviewing all these families for the book, is the kind of short-term costs have really, really big long-term gains. And just having that perspective, I think so much of parenting is a lot of costs for long-term gain is a good one to keep in mind.
Yeah. Well, and it's not even just parenting. It's all of life, like dieting, like you said, or exercise. Like, nobody is like, you know what I can't wait to do is go on a diet. Like, you're going to feel better if you do.
Yes.
And not eat all the junk food, So no, it's
Yeah.
all of life is like that. It's all self-discipline. Okay. To wrap this up, I would actually love to hear. So if people who are listening are like, but literally, how am I going to make dinner without a TV show? So for little kids, what are some things that you guys do in your house? Like in my house, when my kids were little, like your kids' ages, we did the baking soda and vinegar a lot. Like just put baking soda in a 9x13 pan and give them eyedroppers of food coloring and vinegar. And that lasted a while. Because then after you put the vinegar in the baking soda and it bubbles and it's like a volcano or whatever, then it turns into like almost kinetic sand. It is a mess, but it's baking soda and vinegar. So you can also use it as a cleaning product when you're done. Your house will be clean.
I love hearing ideas from other parents. I want to hear what else you did.
Yeah. No, we did that. And then we also, so at IKEA, there's a big roll of like art paper for, it's IKEA. So a couple dollars probably, maybe more now. I don't know. So I always have those. Now we wrap presents with them, but I would roll it out on my kitchen counter and take a black Sharpie and basically make like a really big coloring book for my kids. We did this a lot during COVID, and I'm pretty good at drawing. So I could draw some pretty good like superhero characters, I will say. But if you're not good at drawing, just like a heart or a rainbow, just with the black Sharpie. And then I just laid out the crayons and they would color like on and off all day because I just left it out. I covered the whole kitchen.
Those are genius ideas. Yes, I love all the ideas.
Tell me what you do.
Yeah, so I would say a variety of things. But, we keep a pantry door, like a cabinet in our kitchen, just full of like plastic Tupperware. Like a lot of the other ones have toddler locks on them, so they don't get into my fragile stuff. And that is like their bin. It makes a huge mess, but you're just like, you know what? Fine, pull out all the Tupperware. I'll hand them like silverware spoons or like wooden kitchen spoons, and they just like to pretend to cook, or they make things and like just make giant Tupperware piles. So we do a lot of just like, they can be in the kitchen with me. They can play with those things that are fine for them while the other stuff is off limits. I will also, like you, I think often pull out coloring. I think it's great. They can be at the kitchen counter or at the table where I can see them. I just set them up with coloring and construction paper or whatever they want, art supplies. My kids also love Play-Doh. And so pulling out a lot of Play-Doh, they like to pretend to cook. I think kids just naturally imitate what you're doing. So if I'm cooking, they're kind of interested in that. So I try to let them do some form of that while I make dinner. And I will just say, it is not perfect or uninterrupted. Like I often have to stop what I'm doing and help a child with something, or there's a conflict. And so it doesn't mean that all of a sudden this alternative activity to a screen means that there's no work on the part of the parent. And I would say too, if you have been doing screen time, the initial adjustment will require more involvement because you're helping them form a new habit, but they'll get better at playing independently. The more that they do that, that's stronger that muscle and skill becomes. And so it won't, if you try it for a week and you're like, I can't do this, I'm just going to have to cave and go back to the screens. I would just say, keep going a little bit longer. Give it a couple weeks because they will actually develop these amazing skills. And now my older kids, I can give them books. They'll just sit and flip through books and pretend to read them to me. So I feel like we try to have lots of activities just on hand. I feel like I love your like IKEA paper with the thing just like around and accessible. So that it's just easy to pull these things out. Our kids also have like a kitchen set. And so sometimes they'll just go there and make their own dinner in their kitchen set. Like we just kind of like tell them like mommy's cooking. You got to go like play with these these toys. I try to give a little structure. But then honestly, the more they've done this, they will just kind of entertain and play with themselves with pretty little involvement from me. And that looks different at different ages too. So I would also tell parents of really, really little kids, like, keep going. They will get better. Now my almost 5-year-old's very independent in his play. My 3-year-old's getting better. And my 15-month-old daughter definitely takes the most work of like constantly trying to provide her with activity, but it changes. And so, yeah, those are just some go-tos for us. Yeah, I love baking soda and vinegar. We do that sometimes. Is very fun too. Or just any kind of like, they call them like sensory bins. I mean, it's messy, but you can kind of set them up with rice or oats or beans, like things to just scoop. I feel like toddlers just love that. So,
yeah. I remember when we had our third, I was upstairs in our bedroom with her, just doing postpartum, I don't know, hanging out. Yeah. And my husband came upstairs and he's very type A. I am type B. So that's how we run. And he comes upstairs. I'm like, what are you guys doing down there? And it was like a weekend. He's looking tired. And he was like, the boys are playing with Play-Doh and I let them mix the colors. I was like, oh, wow, good for you. You're getting desperate for activities down there.
Oh my goodness. Your husband and I would get along.
My water beads.
No. Oh, water beads. Those are great. Yeah, I'm a big like no mixing the Play-Doh colors either. So I understand with your husband because I'm like, okay, well now we've just made gross brown like 10 times. But yeah, no, all those like little things are just great. Kids love, they're so kinetic. I feel like anything they can do with their hands will keep them occupied for a while. Yeah, I would also just say there's great resources online today. If I'm really in like a kind of like a brain fog, like I can't come up with anything today, I just Google things online. Busy Toddlers, like a great website. She always has like lots of little easy activities to do at your house that you probably have things on hand already for. And just like it kind of mixes it up for us sometimes, especially a rainy day where you're like, okay, we need some more variety. We've been kind of doing the same things all day. So yeah.
Okay. And then to wrap us up, for the parents who have older kids and they're like, my kids aren't playing with water beads anymore. Although maybe water beads are fun for all ages. What encouragement would you give to those parents who are listening who feel like they're behind or defeated or just it's too late to change anything in their home?
Yeah, I would just say, I'm not in those ages myself, but I can share what other parents have shared with me, which was they thought it was going to be really hard to reverse course at first, but they kind of just reached a point where they're like, we have to try it. Like something has to change. This isn't working. We're frustrated. We see the effects that this stuff has on our kid, like their behavior, their moods have really changed. Like we really want to give this a try to see if removing the screens really makes a difference. And I will tell you, it really does. Like every story I've heard is like, oh, we wish we had done this sooner. This was so helpful. But they do talk about how there's kind of like a pain point, a point of resistance you have to push through, which is just like any habit. It's going to take a little bit of time to break. It's going to take time to form a new habit. So don't give up. And also just, be prepared. I think with older kids, just thinking ahead of time of a plan of activities you can plan for the day, things outside, maybe sports equipment you can buy so they have fun things to do. Board games. This one mom was like, do I love playing Monopoly? No. Did I play it for hours a day initially to get us through this detox? Yes. But it changed. And now she's like, but now I don't have to do as much anymore. But I do think it takes a little bit of planning, of thinking through board games or fun outside sports equipment, or like for a kid, maybe a bike with some more independence, like letting them go on longer bike rides around the neighborhood, like letting them do some more things in the real world within your comfort level, but kind of stretching that a little bit. And I think that actually makes it feel fun for kids that you're giving them some more real world freedoms that they can enjoy, even if you're taking some things away. And I would also say pets are a great real life responsibility. Not saying you have to buy a pet for doing a detox, but I had so many parents say just like when they could give a child ownership over something, maybe it was even a task in the house. One mom said that her daughter became in charge of their like grocery shop, like would have to go through the pantry and make the list. And like they really enjoyed that very adult-like responsibility and kind of took it seriously. So thinking about things you could give a child freedom in or ownership over in the real world as a replacement to kind of channel a lot of their interests in a kind of productive way And then letting them just spend time with friends in real life. Like if you're kind of taking away these things that they may have been using to stay in touch with friends, trying to have friends over to your house. I had one mom say, like, we just tried to be the kind of fun house. Like I got a ping pong table for the basement. I got a fire pit for the backyard. For my teenage son, thinking about teens, I bought a poker set. And he'd have these poker nights where he'd have his friends over and they would like get junk food and play poker with each other. I give a lot of those examples in my book from other parents of older kids of how they proactively kind of made these plans of what they could give children instead in the real world that would help kind of break the dependence and the habits they had formed around screens so that it wouldn't feel like so much of a loss to the child. And they just all said, oh, their time, it was amazing how their kids just formed these new habits and were a lot happier for it.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Okay. And tell us, where can we, after this episode is done, where can we connect with you and just get more resources and all the things?
Well, that's great. Yeah, it's very simple. So the book is at thetechexit.com, and that has a lot of book resources and things available. And then I have a Substack, which is just claremorell.substack.com, which I post resources there. I have articles and things for parents. I also have things kind of policy related of work I'm doing on the policy front. So you can just follow all my writing and work and resources that I'll continue to kind of put out even after the book at my Substack. So those would be the best places to find me. I'm also on Twitter, which I feel like is so ironic because of this book. I'm very sparing in what I post, but I do occasionally just post like helpful articles or video clips or things like that. And that's just at Clare Morell, PPC is my Twitter handle.
Okay. I'll link all of that in show notes. But thank you so much for being here and just for advocating for families and kids. You're doing such important work. And I really, really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us today. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed our conversation.
I hope that you're leaving this episode feeling both challenged and encouraged. There's a lot to think about. I know that I've been thinking about it for a long time, but I just hope that you're reminded that you are not alone in navigating the digital world with kids. It is new to this generation of parents, and we are in it together. As Clare shared, it's not just about managing screen time. It's about shaping hearts, building character, and creating a family culture that reflects what matters most. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it so much. I have tons of resources linked in show notes, so go check them out and don't forget to pre-order the Tech Exit. May God bless you this week. May you have wisdom to lead your family with clarity, courage to make countercultural choices, and grace for the journey ahead. May your home be a place of peace, connection, and deep joy, full of God's loving presence. I know that you want to raise your kids to know, love, and follow Jesus. But let's be honest, parenting with faith in today's world can feel really overwhelming. And that's why at Christian Parenting, we're here to equip you with the practical tools, encouragement, and biblical wisdom that you need to confidently lead your kids in faith. If you love listening to the Christian Parenting Podcast, and I really hope you do, you won't want to miss our Friday Favorites newsletter. Each week, we're going to send you quick, practical parenting tips, faith-building resources, and encouragement straight to your inbox so you never feel alone on this journey. And here's something special just for podcast listeners. When you sign up today, we'll send you a free copy of our Discipleship Simplified digital guide. It is packed with easy-to-use resources, conversation starters, and scripts to help you confidently answer your kids' tough faith questions. So don't miss out. Subscribe now at cppodcast.org to get the Friday Favorites newsletter and your free Discipleship Simplified guide. That's cppodcast.org, or just click the link in the show notes.